baby, baby, yeah. Ooh, I've got it bad. I've got it bad.
Shannon here. We've reached a very unprecedented times in our lives. This country has been a little bit of a chaotic mess ever since this pandemic has started. We're finding grocery store shelves empty, things that we're used to buying just not available anymore. And thankfully, toilet paper is finally showing back up. Anyhow, in the process, Matt and I have helped a couple of people out, going grocery shopping for them and so forth. And it came quite a shock to find out how many families are dependent on ready-to-use items, things like tomato sauce, things like pasta, gravy, things that, you know, our grandparents used to make from scratch all the time. We've kind of lost touch with. So this video is being made for you gravy lovers. I'm going to be making some mushroom gravy, some sausage gravy, and just regular chicken gravy, just to remind us how to use what we have in our shelves. Sometimes things that are growing dust can actually still be used. So let's get to cooking. Okay, so I've adjusted my setup so now you can see the stove, you know, actually pretty well. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna use about roughly a half a stick of butter, and we're gonna let that butter melt down. Okay guys, so I have melted some butter here, and I think I might have forgot to tell you guys that this is the first gravy we're starting with is going to be mushroom gravy, because I'm a vegetarian and that's what I'm having for dinner. So we have the butter melted, and now I'm going to add mushrooms. I'm going to break up the mushrooms as I'm cooking here.
These have been pre-cleaned off, so there's no dirt specks or anything of that nature on them.
Let me get those starting to brown. I have this going at about a 5, so medium heat, depending on what your stove is like. And these are just regular white mushrooms. Every once in a while, I would love to have used portobello, but unfortunately, or portobello, unfortunately, they didn't have any. They just had the white mushrooms. We do what we can do these days, huh? Pretty happy with how these are cooked. So next is flour. Again, I wish I could tell you there was some magic measurement, but I don't have one. I just throw a light dusting on there like that. Looks to be roughly a 1/4 cup from what I can tell. Okay, and this is the fun part because we're going to do a lot of scraping and moving here because the butter has been soaked up by the mushrooms, and that's okay. So I'm going to move this around until the flour is coating all of the mushrooms. We don't want it to burn, so you got to move quickly here. I'm going to use whipping cream. Again, I've said this in other recipes. You can also use milk. It's your preference or whatever you have. And then we're gonna start mixing. There's about maybe a cup of whipping cream in there. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna spread those mushrooms back out because they're covered in flour. And we're going to let that milk or cream heat up. And as it starts to heat up, it's going to start thickening up because it's going to start combining with the flour that's on these mushrooms. A little bit longer. I'm going to use salt and pepper on this. I would also suggest using garlic if you're a garlic fan. I'm a garlic fan, but garlic does not like me. So as you see, it's a nice thick sauce now. I'm going to turn that back down to a low. And I think I'm actually going to add a little bit more whipping cream because it's a little thick for my liking. Now this mushroom gravy would actually really be amazing on chicken or like a chopped steak patty. I would be using it for that myself if I wasn't a vegetarian these days. But there you have it. Mushroom gravy. Okay guys, we're on to gravy lesson number 2 and number 3. So I'm going to be making chicken gravy in this pan here, and that is literally just going to be the chicken broth and the cornstarch, salt and pepper and garlic are additional. And then I'm going to be making sausage gravy. In this one, I went ahead and cheated. They had these on sale, so we did the fully cooked pork crumbles. It's going to be flour and milk. Okay, so I have already poured the chicken broth into this pot here. I've got it on an 8 or a high setting because I want it to come to a boil. In the meantime, I'm heating this pan up to a medium heat. I've got a little bit of oil in there because we're going to brown up that beef a little bit more. Okay, let's focus on this chicken broth. The chicken broth that I used was an unsalted or low sodium, so I'm gonna actually add a little bit of salt to that, and a little bit of pepper. And since this is actually going to another family, I'm gonna add a little bit of garlic powder to season it up. Not too much, they can always add more later. And in the meantime, while that is starting to heat up, I have got some cornstarch here, which is pure cornstarch. Woo! And to be honest, I don't know how much I'm gonna need, so I'm going to sprinkle like 2 tablespoons of cornstarch into that. When you're working with cornstarch, you always want to add water to the cornstarch before you add it to any recipe. So I've added water, and you're gonna stir it around until all of it is dissolved. Now we may not need all of this, but I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. So this is all nice and liquidy, all absorbed, and I'm gonna set it down until that broth comes to a boil. All right, so since this pan is nice and hot now, I'm going to add the sausage to it. And this one is going to be a lot like the mushroom gravy that I made last video. We're going to let those brown up a little bit, and then we're going to add some flour, shake over the top, and add milk. But with this one, since I'm not going to be eating it, it will also have salt and pepper and garlic added to it. Okay, so this sausage is ready. I'm actually going to turn that heat down to a low. And then I'm going to take just some regular flour, And I'm going to sift some on the top, like that. I'm going to add pepper, salt, and garlic. And we're going to make sure you scrape the bottom of the pan so you get the flour up off the bottom and onto the sausage. And once it's pretty well incorporated with the sausage, I'm going to start to add my milk. And I want to add enough milk to cover the sausage. So that should be good. We're going to find out. So, probably going to need a little bit more. We're going to let this milk heat up a little bit and start to thicken. So keeping that on a low temperature, I'm going to continue to scrape from the bottom of the pan until it starts to thicken. Oh, okay, now I'm going to let that warm up for a minute. And over here, let's see, we're at a boil, so I'm going to add about half of that liquid that I made this morning with the cornstarch. We're going to stir that in. And again, you do not want to add your cornstarch directly to this liquid. It will be disastrous. Always, always, always add water first. I'm going to end up adding some more of that. I'm going to stir that around. And normally you guys wouldn't be making two gravies at the same time. I'm just making everything at once. So again, come back to your sausage gravy and scrape it off the bottom, because if you notice, it's getting thicker where the heat source is. So I want to keep breaking that up so all the milk gets thick, not just a little bit. I think I might need to add a little bit more milk, but we're going to let that cook a second more. Check this over here. Not quite thick enough. This is still pretty watery. I might have to make some more cornstarch, but I'm going to address this first. Yeah, this is a little thick, so we're going to add a little bit more milk. Sorry guys, there is not a specific amount of ingredients that I'm using. Just kind of play with it, and that's how you learn, guys. Get out there, give it a try, let your teenager try this. And play with it till you're happy with it. All right, there you have it. There is your sausage gravy, ready for biscuits. So with this chicken stock, it is now a good gravy. I do suggest you use a whisk when making this gravy. It helps to break up any of the clumps of the cornstarch. But as you can see, it's nice and thick, perfect to go over potatoes or, you know, my oven, because that's what I just did. There you have it.